Okay, Shavua Tov, everyone. We're beginning to learn this week's Torah portion, which is called BalHaTurim. And God is telling Moses to tell Aaron to light the menorah in the temple. And I think we went through already where exactly this menorah is found. So let's go through the sentences. God said, God told Moses to say, Taber el Aaron, speak to Aaron, v'amar to Olam, and say to him, when you light the nerot in the holy temple, el mul panei menorah, that the nerot are supposed to be facing the central lamp. So there are 7 lamps altogether. There's one which is on the central pole, and then there's 6 to either side. You should light all 7 of the lamps. Says Rashi, why is this? First of all, we're learning this immediately after last week's Torah portion, which was Parshas Naso. The Parshas Naso had ended by telling us in very great detail, and apparently in unnecessary detail, apparently, of course, everything in the Torah is exactly what each and every one of the 12 tribes brought to the temple, in this case the tabernacle, when it became open for business, or more exactly what the head of each tribe brought. The tribes didn't bring, the head of the tribe brought. And so that the first day that the tabernacle was open was the first day of Nisan, almost a year after the Jews got out of Egypt. And after that, for the next 12 days, everybody brought the same offering. Remember, we learned about that last week. So immediately after that, it tells this is what everybody brought to the Chanukat Mizbech, to what is called the inauguration of the altar of the tabernacle. And immediately after that comes this week's Torah portion that God says to Aaron, light the candles in the temple. Lama nisbacha, why is this come right after the other? So you can say, what do we care why it comes? I mean, God does whatever he wants to. No, there's something there. And everything that is written in the Torah, really in everything in life, there's a lesson to be learned. But especially the Torah, the whole purpose of the Torah is to teach us how to look into things a little bit more deeply and apply it to our life. So here we have, last week we're talking about how each one of the tribes brought a offering for the inauguration of the tabernacle. And Aaron didn't bring anything. There were the 12 tribes, and Levi wasn't one of them. Remember, Joseph was divided into 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. So there was 12 tribes, and you get the number 12, even if you don't include Levi. So it says that's what happened. Because when Aaron saw Chanukat Nisim, the inauguration offerings of all of the other leaders of the tribe, Chol Sha'az Dato, he became very, very weak. How do you want to call it? Left out. There must be a better word in English. He felt very abandoned. Dato, his mind became weak. It says all of a sudden he became very ashamed, embarrassed, whatever it is. He wasn't with them in their offering, the offerings that they brought to inaugurate the tabernacle, and he wasn't there, and his whole tribe wasn't there. Let's get this point right here. God, of course, noticed his brokenness, and he said, "Chayecha, by your life." In other words, I promise, Shalcha Gedola Shalhem, what you're going to give is be even greater than theirs. That you light the candles. So I'm going to give you, you're going to have the candles, not just the offerings. Everybody's going to ask on this. The Ramban is going to have a big question on this, and the Or HaChaim is going to have a big question on this. Why is that better? You could say, God said you have something, you also have something. Don't worry, I'm not leaving you out. You're going to also get something. Why is lighting the candles better? Anyway, that's what Rashi says. And of course, Rashi brings it from Talmud, from the Midrash. So yours is even better than them. You are going to light the candles. Simply, you can say that you're going to light the candles, that they're bringing their offerings and they get burned up, and then and the candles, they last the whole day, actually the whole night. Light them up the whole night. But they light 2 candles in the daytime, and then before the last thing in the day, they light 7 candles, all 7. So they light the whole night also. So we can say maybe that's what he's trying to say. But anyway, the candles are greater. The Ramban has a beautiful answer. He says it talks about Chanukah. Okay, let's see. BalHaTurim, why is it called? It says when you light the lamps. BalHaTurim, when you light the lamps. What type of language is this? It says when you lift up the lamps. BalHaTurim, it was to lift them up. It doesn't say anything about lighting. Why does it say? It says Al Shem Alahav, because of the flame Ola that goes up. Kativ, it says Aliyah. So therefore, lighting a lamp means to lift up. The flame goes up. And you have to light it. You have to light it. Don't take the match away until the flame goes up on its own. It's autonomous. It doesn't depend on you anymore. So that's what it means. The flame has to go up, has to be on its own, has to be independent. Another explanation, Od, Dosh Rabotenu Ba'alotcha et hanerot, when you go up, not when you raise up, when you go up, Mala Hayata Lifnei Menora, there were steps in front of the menorah. Shaleh HaKohen Omed, that the Kohen stands on it, Umetiv, and he prepares the candles. There's 2 steps. There was preparing the candles, because the candles would be burning all night. One would remain in the morning lit. The one would remain lit, even though they put the same amount in all of the 7 lamps that were on the menorah. But every night there was a big miracle that they would light until the morning, and they would all finish naturally, but one of them would keep going up, keep burning. Say in the last, whatever it is, 40 years of the temple, in the first temple, I guess maybe in the second temple. I have to look and see. I think the second temple, the last 40 years, I have to look and see. But in any case, the last 40 years of the temple, this miracle ceased. But they would light. Okay, so, but the Kohen, it says, would go up on this ladder, and he would light. Now, really, it wasn't that high. The candle. He could have just taken a stick and lit it. It was like 5 feet high, something like that, the whole thing. So it wasn't that high, but nevertheless, there was, he would be able to look down, and what's called metiv means that he would clean out the old wicks, and he would clean out the soot and everything from and then he would light them. 2 he would light in the daytime, that would remain the whole day. And then he would light the other 5, and then relight these other 2 again. And that would then, all 7 would be going the whole night. So he would only light all 7 really in the right before the evening. It was the last thing that they would do in the temple. So there was a little steps in front. There were little steps in front of this menorah, and he would go up on the steps. El mul panei menorah, el mul nera emtzai. It says you have to light. The 6 lights they were all pointing toward the center one. 3 were on the left, 3 was on the right, or more exactly, 3 were on the east, 3 were on the west. El mul panei, it says mul panei emtzai, the middle one. She'enu b'kanim ela b'gufa menorah. The middle pillar was not a stem going out. It wasn't a branch. That was the actual body. That was the main central pillar. And the others, there were 3 that would come out this way, and 3 that would come out that way. Yo'ir Shivas Nerot, the 7 lights should shine. Shisha Sha'al Shisha Kanim, 6 on the 3 branches that went out on either side. Shloshim Mizrachis, Pone Lemul, Emsois Pesila Shaba'em, Pekin Shlosha Mariris, Roshia Pesilos Lemul Emsoi. That the lamps, they were pointed inwards. In other words, the mouth of the lamp and also the wick, it didn't go up. It sort of went over to the side and pointed toward the middle. So the 3 on this side pointed this way and the 3 on this side pointed the other way. So therefore, it didn't shine out. Lama, why? So that no one would say that they built this menorah because they needed light in the Holy Temple. And it says that the Holy Temple used to light up itself. I think there were also torches there. But it says lit up itself. This is we'll learn later on that the windows in the first and the second temple, the windows were narrow on the inside and wide on the outside, so that the light would go from in outwards to indicate that the Holy Temple was illuminating the whole world. It was shining out to the whole world. So the menorah was not there in order to illuminate the temple. First of all, the menorah was only in the holy. It wasn't outside, where you could see outside. It was in what was called the Kodesh, the holy. But it didn't even illuminate that because it was illuminated itself. Since there was light, the whole thing was illuminated on its own. It's good. Let's look at the Ramban. The Ramban, he's going to stand on this. He's going to say, Rashi says that the reason is because the menorah, why is it talking about the menorah? Because Aaron felt very bad. He did not make any offerings, and all the other 12 tribes did. And he did not. So God said to him, you're going to have something better. You're going to have the menorah, and the menorah is going to be better than all of the offerings. That's what Rashi says. Rashi takes it from Midrash. And it says the Ramban. Now the Ramban, he lived something like almost 200 years after Rashi. But the Ramban was a very great person. He was also a very great Kabbalist in addition. And he has every right to disagree with what Rashi says. Not that he's necessarily always, that's the law is like him, but he is definitely has the wisdom and the fear of God to disagree with Rashi. Like we finished saying, if you remember, we just learned that every idea in the Torah, it has 600,000 faces to it. Samach Ribo, it says. And that also in the simple meaning, the Pshat, Remez, Drus, and so there's, and all of them can be valid, providing that they're from valid people. We're not talking about, the church or something like that. They come to destroy the Torah. We're talking about the ideas that come to uphold the Torah. Ramban is certainly one of them. So it says, I disagree with Rashi. Rashi says that God was comforting Aaron by giving him lighting the menorah, and he says the menorah is greater than the sacrifice. It says, I don't understand. Lama nicham, why did this comfort Aaron? I got better things you could comfort him. Aaron did a lot of things that the others didn't do. First of all, Aaron offers his offspring and also him. They offer up the incense in the morning and the evening. That the Torah really praises the incense. It says, Yasimu Ketorah Ba'pecha. It praises Aaron, Levi, that he'll put the incense there. Also, not only that, all the sacrifices, Aaron and the whole rest of the generations, Aaron, he sacrifices all the sacrifices every day. No one else can sacrifice, can offer up the animals on the altar except for him. What about the Minchas Chavitin? He brought bread offerings every morning. The bread offering. Also, what about the serve of Yom Kippur? The only one that can do Yom Kippur is Aaron the Kohen. He went into the Holy of Holies. No one goes into the Holy of Holies. God could have said, Aaron, don't worry about it. Don't feel bad. You're going to go in the Holy of Holies. You're the one that's going to be blessing. What about blessing of the Kohanim? right? So there's all these other things that the Aaron does and the Kohanim do that the other tribes don't do at all. But why did he comfort him specifically with the lighting of the menorah? I mean, certainly that's one of the things. It's a very honorable thing. But there's a lot of other things also that Aaron does that no one else does. Or also, why did Aaron feel bad? Hello, Karavnu Gadol Michel Nasim. His sacrifice, he got more, how do you say, attention than all the other Nasim, than all the other leaders of the tribes. How so? Because who was making all these offerings? The tribes, they just brought these offerings. Remember we said the Parachad, Ayalachad, they brought all the offerings, but the one that was actually doing the sacrificing was Aaron. Aaron, he was making all these sacrifices all the day of the Miluim. First of all, there was the sacrifices that they made, and also there was the 8 days, the 7 days of the preparation before the tabernacle opened up. There were 7 preparatory days that he did all the offerings. So what's so special about the menorah? Says the Ramban, and I'm going to tell you what's special about the menorah. The menorah, in some ways, is more special than the incense and the blessing of the Kohanim, and this is more special. How? The Jewish remembers al Chanukah shel Nero shel Yatob b'Bayit Sheni. This is talking about the miracle of Chanukah that was in the second temple, and this was also by means of Aaron and his sons. This is really a big deal. This is really something special. But Sony Lomar, I mean to say, Chashmona I Kohen Gadol Ubanov. What happened in the second temple? In the second temple, all of the Jewish people really went off the track. In the second temple, the Greeks, and we're talking about the middle of the second temple, all the Greeks had conquered the world. The Greeks were very civilized people. They were handsome people. They had the sport. They had all these things. The Jews really went berserk over the Greeks. And the Jews said, "Wow, here's our big chance. We can leave the Torah, and we got something better. We can participate in the Olympics and in beauty contests and all these other, art and music and what was it? Plays. They had plays and philosophy, right? These Greeks were great. And they were also very licentious people, very, running after all sorts of pleasures. And the Jews loved it. The only ones that really were sort of faithful to the whole business, to the temple and everything, were the Kohanim. That was the Chashmonim. And it says that basically it came down to there was only 13 of them, and they fought against everybody. 13. That's what Rashi says. 13 Chashmonim. They fought against all the Jews. They just wanted to, leave me alone. They just wanted to be like everybody else. And we stood up 13 Kohanim, and they fought, and they drove out the Greeks, tens of thousands, it says, of Greeks, and they had to fight against the Jews also, because the Jews also were, they liked the Greeks, and they. I mean, if everybody knew about this, I don't think most of the people in Israel would keep the holiday of Hanukkah. They would outlaw the holiday. They tried it a couple times. They tried it. In any case, that's like the Jewish identity holiday, is Hanukkah. But that's what he was talking about. That's what he's talking about. That's the big thing that God said, I'm going to give to you. Lashon said that we also find this, and there's a book called Megillah Satarim for Rabbeinu Nisim. The Megillah of Mystery, the mysterious Megillah of Rabbeinu Nisim. That he mentions this, and he says, I saw in a midrash, Kaven Shehikrivu Shnemas Shvatim, since the 12 tribes they made their offerings. V'lo Yikriv Shevet Levi, and Levi did not. Omer l'Kodesh Baruch Hu, God said to Moses, Daber al Aaron, speak to Aaron and say to him, Yesh Chanukah Acheres, there's another Chanukah that there's lighting the candles. V'ani oseh bo Yisrael al yedei banech. I also do it by means of you and your sons. Nisim v'tshuos, big miracles. Not like here, it's just going to be in the Holy Temple, and you're going to do what I say, and the Holy Temple is going to be good. You're going to have all sorts of miracles. You're going to save all of the Jewish people. V'chuos v'Chanukah shekruim al shamam, and that's going to be the Chanukah that's going to be called on the name of these Chashmonaim. He Chanukah's b'nei Chashmonai. Therefore, Yismich Parshazu, the Parshas Chanukah's Mizbech. That's what it says. So, in other words, this is referring to a big miracle that happened, which comes from the essence of the Jewish soul, from what he called below to above, bursting through the darkness. The Jewish people sacrificed their lives, the Kohanim, in order to maintain Jewish identity. Pretty beautiful. And here we're talking about very nice. There was the Holy Temple and everything, but this was all gifts that were given from God. The Jews didn't have to do anything special. They just brought the offerings. But when times got hard, and when things didn't go so well, and when God was not speaking to everybody, then everybody just said, let's check out, right? Check out of this hotel. We don't need Judaism anymore. And the Kohanim said, the reason we are Jews is not that God will serve us, but that we will serve him. They risk their lives. And that's how we get the holiday of Hanukkah. And that's what's talking about over here. That's what's talking about. That Aaron, that God gave Aaron the commandment of lighting the candles, and eventually they would have a new thing, which is called total self-sacrifice for Judaism in the temple. The Cain also, but Midbarab also says, Midbarab says, God to Moses, go and say to Aaron, don't be afraid. I have something greater for you is prepared. Hakarbanos, the sacrifices all the time, right? These other tribes, they're only bringing sacrifices. The sacrifices all the time that the Beit HaMikdash exists, they exist. But the candles, the Olam, El Mul Panei Menora, Ya'iru, the candles will always shine. In other words, the first answer is that the holiday of Hanukkah is going to be given because of self-sacrifice. The second answer is that this holiday of Hanukkah is going to be eternal. It's never going to go away. That's one thing. And also all the blessings that I've given to you in order that you bless the Jewish people, that also will never go away. It's a known thing that when there's no Beis HaMikdash, the sacrifices, there won't be any sacrifices because of the destruction of the temple, but also the candles will also stop. There's no menorah anymore. Of Aloramzu, it's talking about the Nerot, it's talking about the candles of the Chashmonaim, which will continue, Shehi Noeges Af, even Achar Chorban, which is even after the temple. Here we've been lighting the Hanukkah candles already for well over 2,000 years. Right? They celebrated Hanukkah also in the time of the temple. Over 2,000 years, we're lighting these candles. The Kain Brichas Kohanim, also the blessing of the Kohanim. This is also, which is next to the Chanukas and Nisim. No, Haggis L'Olam, also forever. That was last week's Torah portion. Remember, before we started counting the offerings that the tribes brought, there were the blessings of the Kohanim. Remember we learned last week? Yivrach Hashem Yishmerecha. So therefore, right before the 12 tribes offered up is an eternal commandment to Aaron, namely the blessing of the Kohanim, that the Kohanim even bless today. And afterwards, which is the lighting of the Hanukkah candles. Okay, there's another explanation that says that this is why, to let you know that even in the nighttime, that the light Aaron will let the candles also in the nighttime. All the other offerings were done in the daytime. And here we're talking about even in the nighttime of exile. Here he's saying that God spoke to him in the nighttime. Okay, anyway, that's basically the answer of the Ramban. Let's look a little bit, right? That what he's talking about, he's referring to that why is the lighting of the candles greater? Because the lighting of the candle was done in the tabernacle, in the temple, and the tabernacle, and it didn't stop, even though it did stop officially when the menorah was not in the holy. You couldn't light the menorah officially, but we can light the Hanukkah candles, and that is continuing for all time. BalHaTurim, BalHaTurim, a Nerot. This Nerot, it says, last week we talked about the Chanukat HaMizbeach, Zot Chanukat HaMizbeach. Now he's talking about the Nerot. Aaron is lighting the candles to Chanukah, the Persumi Nisa, namely advertising the miracle of candles. Advertising. We have to advertise the miracle of candles. Chanukah is the only holiday where there's this weird idea of Persumi Nisa. Persumi Nisa means you have to advertise the miracle. You can light candles on Chanukah, and no one actually does the commandment. You can make a blessing. You light the candles, for instance, like Chabad does. They light it out in the street, and they can make a blessing. And nevertheless, everyone, even the person who lit it, when he goes home, he has to make another blessing because he didn't really do the commandment. There's a special commandment which is called Pirsumi Nisa. Doing the commandment, making a blessing just on advertising. You can't do that on any other thing. Make a blessing on putting on tefillin, right? That's it. You made a blessing on putting on tefillin. You don't make a blessing on those tefillin in any case. And again, but the lights of lighting the candles, you make a blessing on lighting the candles, even if it's just to advertise. So that's the same thing. They're advertising Chanukat HaMizbeach, to advertise the miracle. Ba'alot et, this is the gematria of Asa Bo Malot. This is the numerical, as the BalHaTurim. He knows all these numerical tricks, taking the letters and adding them up. If you take the words Ba'alot et, it's the same numerical value as Asa Bo Malot. Make for it steps. El Mul Pnei Menora. This is the gematria, the numerical value. These words El Mul Pnei Menora Ya'iru is the same numerical value. Count it if you want to on your own. We're not going to do it now. Ki ani eini tzarich la'oro, because I do not need its light. God says I don't need it for light. The only reason was just to advertise that God is in the temple. It says that there was the miracle with with one of the candles that remained lit through the whole night and in the day. Penei Menora Ya'iru, this is the gematria of Ki ani la'oro tzarich, do I need its light? 7 lights, why connected corresponding to the 7 mazalot, to the 7. Here he's talking about the 7 planets. I don't know why he says the 7 mazalot, 7 planets. Mazalot, I don't know, because there's 12 mazalot, and I have to look that up. In any case, the 7 planets: Chama, Noga, Kochav, Lavana. That in English is translated the sun and Venus and Venus and Mercury and the moon, Lavana. Shabtai is Saturn. Tzedek is Jupiter. And Madim is Mars. I don't know if it's permissible even to say those names because they're Greek gods. But I guess they're not referring to gods anymore. I don't know. You got to be careful, I guess. Kativ, it says, Ba'alot Chat and Nerot. It says, La'alot Ner Tamid. This is talking about, there's 2 times it says, Ba'alot et Nerot. And then it says, La'alot Ner Tamid. So it says, first of all, there's an argument how you light the candles on Chanukah. Beit Hillel says you start out with 1, and the next night you light 2, and the next night 3. That's how we do it. So according to Beit Shammai, it says Ner, and then afterwards Nerot. First 1, Shemosifim, that you add on. Ainu La'alot Ner Tamid. That's what it means. You have 1 more constantly. You add on. Beit Shammai says no. First of all, you have Nerot, at the Nerot, a lot. First of all, you light the first night of Chanukah, according to Beit Shammai, you light 8 candles. And then afterwards, you take away, you go down to ner, that you go down and decrease all the time. Okay, I'd like to do the Orach Chaim because he basically asked the same questions as the Ramban, but he came to a bit different conclusion. But we're not going to do it. We'll do this, God willing, tomorrow because it's very interesting. These were tremendously genius people. The Orach Chaim, he lived like 300 years ago, something like that, 350 years ago. Same time as the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, let's now look at Pirkei Avot. Let's look at Pirkei Avot. Let's do this. Second. Stop share.